So we're going to look at, anybody who's seen QI knows that there's a letter per series. So we're doing P for PMO, and it's the stuff that, I didn't realise that QI stood for quite interesting. So I'm going to basically spend the next 15 minutes cutting through the waffly bollocks that is PMO research, okay? And what I've done, I've picked out the things that I think are quite interesting. And then you can decide on whether you agree with me or not, and maybe go and have a look at that kind of stuff. So where this fits into setting up a PMO is that obviously these eggheads that are out there doing this research stuff are obviously, you know, everything around the whole PMO stuff is about making sure we're having a PMO that is successful. So what I'm going to do is to start off. You've heard this thing. Somebody said it last night at the dinner that we had, about, you know, that statistic, you know, the one about PMOs that are, you know, that are 50% of PMOs close within 3 years. You know that that's wrong. It's not actually right, and we all say it. So before we get into some of the recent research, I had a word with Monique Aubrey. She's the one that did that research back in 2007. And actually, those projects weren't shutting down. They were transforming, changing, evolving into something else. So they were never terminated. So it's an actual wrong fact that we keep getting out there. But they didn't shut down. And 50% don't close down within 3 days. 3 years. Yeah. So actually we wanted to explore, so our original research was about that a PMO gets changed, and obviously later on today we're going to look at the evolving and changing PMO. But in terms of the research that's come after that, and Nicole's done a good job in helping me show some of the stuff that I just wanted to pull out, because this is the latest research. You know, there is no like army of people out there doing masses of PMO research, let's face it. You know, there's a good group of people in various universities around the year, predominantly in Stockholm, Canada and Australia. And this particular one, which is why it's interesting, is so the projects weren't being shut down, they were evolving and changing. So what are the drivers that are changing PMOs? So I thought that looks interesting, we'll have a look at that. And these are the events that happen both externally to an organisation, but also internally. And then there's some issues that are happening and occurring within that, within those contexts as well. So these are the things that are changing and evolving PMOs. You know, that's not necessarily a thing that PMOs have a total control over. I mean, you can see that one of them's having a new PMO manager. So obviously, you know, somebody new comes on board, there's going to be a change in what it is that you're offering. So here's the research about, well, okay, so if they're not shutting down, what's happening? And these are the things that are affecting them. So Nicole showed you what is becoming, thankfully, a PMO life cycle, which, you know, is got some good stuff behind it. And I'm not going to go into the ins and outs because she looked at that. So you've got the bits that are affecting that PMO life cycle. Then you've got the capabilities that underpin it. So hello, that's us guys, yeah? That's us doing our job down in the weeds and service catalogues and capability and all that kind of stuff. And then also it looks at the maturity model, so how PMOs get more mature in terms of what they're doing. So if you keep that life cycle in mind, if you look back then, I know it's tiny writing, but by the way, all these slides that have got really interesting stuff in, you're going to get these so you can pore over them later. So, you know, bear with, but so if you see some of those external event drivers, you can see how they're mapping onto that life cycle. in terms of where is the impact. So potentially then, if you look at especially the next one where you start to look at right down in the weeds here about some of the issues, these are some of the things that the PMO can control and can get involved in. Some of the things that you're not going to be able to because it's an external thing. What we do is deal with that impact of that change. But actually, where we can do work and make things better and change things are at that life cycle model. So, these are an interesting, I suppose, a view that I've never really seen before and highlighted in that way. And I hope you find it quite interesting. Now, if you saw the paper that was behind that, God, you'd have to dig and dig before you could find what is the point. But, these are these research people, but there's a bit of it, don't they? They're writing all this stuff. So, Nicole also picked up on the principles. So, I swear to God, when we were doing these presentations, she was doing her bit. I'm like thinking about, well, what's the research? And it's interesting how some of this stuff is already starting to get into people's heads, So, the thing about the principles, again, I first looked at it, I can't understand it. Eileen had to tell me about 3 times. She did a book with the guys about these principles. And it's, okay, so I get principles and stuff, but, PMO principles, what's all that about? So essentially the best way it was described to me, so again, cutting through the waffle, is that when you don't know what to do, when there's been no path trodden before you, your business wants to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Let's take Agile as a point, yeah? We come in one day, we're going to do Agile projects. PMO, can you just work out what the hell we're supposed to do with that, please? It's probably a path untrodden. So you don't really know what you're doing. So it's the principles. So when you have principles, it helps you, because you kind of fall back on those. It helps you to behave appropriately and stop going off and going and doing some mad stuff. So you've got principles. So one of the things that this slide just blew my head. It's like, what is that saying? And essentially, on that standard side, is that's normal. That's like, we're cool, we're cushy, we know what we're doing. But actually, when we start to get things more complex and we don't know how to do things, so the predictability of outcome, it's like, oh my God, we don't know what we're doing. That's when principles start to kick in. And the interesting thing is over the last 9-10 months, however long that book's been out, people have been looking at it and thinking, we've got our principles pasted up on the wall now, so people can see what our PMO principles are. Some of them have taken from these, which are these things here, 7 of them. Quite broad, but at least then, from a PMO point of view, that you're all kind of like on the same page. Yeah, so you do know what your principles are, and you're living and breathing them every day in the interactions that you do, the new things that you might be doing. But it's kind of like the values in the ethics that you fall back on. So it's an interesting piece of research, I thought, and quite new to what we're doing. So then it all starts to go a bit like mad now with some of the other things that are coming out, which is this whole thing. You've probably heard people talking about knowledge brokers. The knowledge broker is the PMO. Totally, yeah. So in terms of a definition, you are there in that business, helping people. You're there in the middle, let's say, and you've got stakeholders, you've got project teams, you've got business units, finance, all these people. And actually, it's the PMO that is holding it together in terms of a glue. Yeah. So the knowledge broker thing has become a piece of research that is actually worth exploring, because it helps you to look at how do you set up and create the centre of excellence type stuff we do. So, all that stuff about, we do best practice, and if you want to know how we do a process, you come and talk to us. That's your centre of excellence type brain thing going on. So this thing about stars and gatekeepers is about essentially, the PMO is one of these. But in its true sense in the research, a star are these people within the business that you can essentially go to that know the people and know stuff. And the way that they actually, if you look at this in terms of these are the stars and the gatekeepers, and these are the different kind of roles you'll see within that project environment, you see that actually the PMO should be that highly influential, knows a lot of stuff and people type thing, which fits into that whole knowledge broker stuff. So that's not the only thing, because that's, 2003 when this started coming out, and I love this term, and I wrote a piece about it on Flashmob's website, a boundary spanner. I love the fact that we could be a PMO spanner. You know, and I know people have got different meanings of the word spanner, but, you know, leave that for later. A boundary spanner is about showing that the PMO and the boundaries in business is that you span those boundaries, yeah? So let's not have this stuff about, oh, finance team, we hate each other. No, you need to be spanning that, bridging that, yeah? That's how you're going to be doing a better job, all in all. But out of that research in 2013 came these roles. So actually, as a PMO, you interpret, you negotiate, you're an ambassador, you're an educator and a translator. There's all these other types of roles that if you consider your role today, where you're a PMO manager, director, an analyst, a coordinator, a support officer, whatever you are, actually, you look at a bog standard job ad. Do we have stuff like this that is in there? And if not, why not? Why can we not push for this new kind of role that includes this stuff? This is the things that make things happen. Bring it forward to 2018, and Hannah is doing this research out of a university in Australia. I haven't got a clue which one, but can't remember. But from a learning broker is now the thing. So she's done the original research about this knowledge broker stuff and the boundary spanners, and now she's just released this paper, which has been funded by PMI. And out of that, and again, honestly, this paper really waffly. However, I was able to pull out some quite interesting bits. And this bit I loved is about the feed forward. So the PMO is not necessarily, we'll always do quite a lot of retrospective stuff. Lessons learned, looking back at what we've done, you know, all of that kind of thing. And this is about the role of the PMO being an educator and helping learning to go on within our business. And the feed-forward learning is about the exploration of new knowledge that's coming out of stuff. Yeah, if you think about that archaic thing, the lessons learned, so we'll hear some about stuff later on. Not the archaic stuff, obviously, but yeah, you know what I mean. But it's an interesting, quite interesting piece that came out, and I thought, actually, what are PMOs doing in order to help our project organisations learn? Because if it is not PMO, who is it? Who does that? It's not the HR department. They do training and courses, but it's the PMO where this kind of project-related learning should be coming out of our stuff. So that was the centre of excellence type stuff. And again, the research coming out is pushing this whole knowledge piece, is that we are the custodials, the brokers. You come to us, we know what's going on, we can help you, we can connect you to people, we have the information, we can give you not just data, we can give you the information. And crucially, now in the world of Agile, you should be coaching. Not just in the Agile sense, but just generally. And again, that's another area that has been popping up left, right and centre over the last few years. But this is what the research is also telling us. So there's, you know, we can't all be, you know, they can't just be making it up because it feels about right. So 2018 then, Monique Aubrey caught up with her, big PMO researcher. She's not doing PMO research as such. She's now looking at organisational design because organisations now are more complex, as we all know, and therefore the PMO is an integral part of the project organisation. So she is looking at project organisations rather than just PMO. She sees a bigger remit. Okay, get that. There's lots of stuff going on there. So organisational design, if you didn't know what all that was, is just very simply how to organise people and resources in order to collectively accomplish desired ends. Fantastic, great, that's what we're all here to do. Super. So, in terms of that kind of research, now I really did have to pick out the bones of this one. Essentially what they're saying is that the reasons why, and the research is essentially what they're saying is that the context is everything. Contingency theory, is that right? Yeah, every PMO is different, we know that, every organisation is different. So at the moment, looking at organisational design type insights is very early days, is what she's saying, is that we're not really, we've just started to explore it. But what she does know from research that she's done with some hospitals in Canada is that it's the PMO mandate, so what we are doing and how we are going to do things is very closely linked with the organisational design. And therefore, our organisation's design and our project design helps us think what the PMO is going to do. So that's just saying we just do what the business wants us to do. Fine, but there's some insights and stuff specifically from the field of organisational design that is very useful for us. And the big thing there is that it's culture that drives us. So we think about some of the stuff about setting up PMOs. We do what our business wants us to do. So big boss says we need to know these kind of insights. Actually, the cultural side of our organisation has a big impact, and we often perhaps ignore that when we think about how we set up PMOs. But at the moment, what we know is that organisational design is an ongoing changing thing. Are you still with me? Because it's this, right? Last bit, I've got 1 minute left. I know that's it's this waffly stuff, but I'm hoping that I'm getting across some of my, what I've learned. Finally, PMO Success. We had a conversation last night at over dinner about metrics and KPIs and stuff like that. One of the things that research is not actually a paper. It's a paper, not research yet. And how do we know a PMO is successful? And the paper explores, first of all, this is how they try to measure the organisational value of project management, which is closely aligned to us, yes? That these are the things that we know will make, or that project management is successful in a business. And it's these 5 things. And this has been around for a while. The new thing, the new paper is, so what is the PMO one? And this came out really strongly last night, is that actually it's a combination. Is that the achieving some internal PMO development milestones, and that can be number of services provided, blah, blah, blah. And we've got a few of those from last night. The second one is about actually we take some of the discrete project successes, so the number of projects completed, blah, 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 and then obviously achieved a performance during the ongoing PMO assessment, so how we're going on month by month, year by year. Early days, again, it's just a paper, it's not been proven yet, but that is it. Thank you very much. Yeah.